Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of the Florida Sound Archive podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Kaiser. And for today's episode, I have on with me a very special guest. I'm pleased to welcome in Chris G. Simmons. If you're not familiar with Chris, you're going to be after this episode. And for those that are, well, you're in for a treat. We're going to take a long trip down memory lane, talk about a lot of the bands that Chris has been in over the years, whether it be from Nasty to Lick City to the Vagues and the Niki Taylors and everything else in between, and maybe even after. Chris G. Simmons is here. Welcome into the podcast. Great to have you.
Thank you, sir. It is an absolute honor to be here on your great show. I love it.
Oh, I appreciate that, Chris. Thank you so much. And I'm great to finally have you on so we can tackle your story and get into some of the history there. So that's where we're going to really get things started, is to think about some of those earliest beginnings, where you grew up, some of those early musical influences. So let's go back to that early beginning for you. Where'd you grow up?
Oh gosh, born in like probably half your guests, Broward General, 1969. Um, and yeah, just great family. Very very lucky to have the family that I did.
What was your family listening to in those early years when you were growing up?
And you know what? My dad still has all my records, my mom's records, and he's got a thing just like what's behind you. It's like all of my dad got stuck with all of our shit, like the Star Wars toys, the records, yeah, all that stuff. He's probably got like $1 million worth of Star Wars toys of mine sitting sitting in the attic, melting in the attic. But yeah, they it was, like everybody, probably classic rock, Fleetwood Mac and whatnot, and had somewhat musical family. My grandfather, he was a jazz musician. My dad's side of the family is British. My mom's side of the family is redneck. So both of those accents cancel each other out, and so I have none. But yeah, so my grandfather Reginald Simmons, he was a jazz musician, played with some of the greats, etc. He was also an engineer at public television right from the beginning in Miami. They moved over here, I think, in the 50s from England. My dad, his mom, his dad, and his sister, and got into television. And then had my dad. He was also in television. He went to the war in Vietnam and whatnot, and came back, got into television, and he actually retired as the VP of engineering and operations of public television in Miami. He was also somewhat musician, but not really. We had a guitar that was my granddad's, and my dad actually taught me my first song on the guitar.
What was
I
that?
don't know the name. I
Okay.
don't know. It goes boom, 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 boom. It's very easy. I don't want to sing it, but I'll destroy it. But I haven't thought about it in 50 years probably. But he taught, and that was kind of the beginning of my life of hell, rock star hell.
What was the
Uh,
first band you actually discovered on your own that was not considered your parents' music?
oh my God. I will say the exact same thing every single person you've ever interviewed will say. And that is, can you guess?
It's got to be Kiss.
Did it? You know it. Yeah, Kiss. Oh my God, Kiss. I think it was Alive. And when I saw that fucking record, I about shat my pantaloons. Okay, I was like, what? I don't know what it was, but that's what I wanted to be. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what I was seeing, but I knew that was it. And like from the very first moment. And I don't know, I don't think it was right when it came out because it was probably before. I don't know, but that was the first album I saw Alive. And you know, when you're 10, back when Saturday Night Live was funny, you look and you don't realize that it's a photo shoot. Now you look at it and it's like, oh, it's a fucking photo shoot. But back then it was like, Ace and Gene is like, and holy fucking shit, man. That was it. It was that was it. So, I I immediately got into them, started getting the record. My parents started getting me the records, and of
What
course, then I
what
and
what instrument did you gravitate to when you were getting familiar
guitar.
with Kiss guitar?
I was already playing guitar, I started playing guitar like, at a very early age. I don't even know when my dad taught me that, but I was very, very young. And so yeah, so anyway, I started playing and I started writing songs immediately. And it got, started emulating Kiss, of course. And then of course I was one of those kids who tortured the family with shows when they had family dinners. So, and you can actually see this if you go to chrisgsimmons.com/interview, and this is a website only for your audience. Just go there and you can see a shit ton of pictures. And the first ones are two or three from the shows that I put my poor family through. They loved me and they were so supportive, and I tortured them and punished them with these fucking shows. They loved it, but or they pretended to, and so that's good enough. But so I would dress up in these wacky outfits, as you may be able to see in the web page, and would put on these shows and sing with my cousin Tanya, and I made her all up and stuff, and it was fun. And actually, that's when I discovered. I think I was into Led Zeppelin at the time too, which is clear in one of those pictures where I have the bow and I'm bowing my grandfather's guitar that I spoke of earlier, being taught up. And then when I had a picture, I had a giant poster of Led Zeppelin, and it had Jimmy Page with his SG double neck. And so I was like, okay, I need a double neck. So I had a Kiss guitar, one of those plastic pieces of shit they gave you. And then I had another one that was like a wireless that went to like a radio, like the "Hey, good looking, be back to pick you up later," that thing, the Mr. Microphone, it was FM. And so I took my dad's soldering iron and I ruined it with the plastic, and I burnt the neck off one and soldered it on the other. And you can actually see the photograph on that page of me playing the double neck guitar at one of the shows. Yes, I destroyed two guitars and my dad's soldering iron. So you're welcome, Father. And yeah, so I was always doing that. And it is funny because I would write these songs, and I had a shit ton of them. Probably when I was 10, I had notebooks of them. And I would write the lyrics, and then because Led Zeppelin was known for their extensive solos, of course. And so it would be like the verse, blah, 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 blah. And then it would be like solo, 3 minutes. Three, and then another verse, chorus, and then solo, 10 minutes. Like, what the fuck? And I had a stopwatch, and I would sing the song, in my head, and sing it, and then let it run for 3 minutes for the solo, and then and then I would write the time on the top, like this song is 10 minutes, because back in the 70s, long songs were the thing. So the longer my song was, the prouder I was. And they were all kind of stupid, but I ended up writing one, and I can't believe I fucking remember this. The first song, like the first like real song that had like real music and whatnot, it was called Showdown. I can't believe I'm remembering this. And I sang it and played it for my parents, and they loved it, and we had a dry erase board out by the clothes washing machines, and it was like up on the wall, and I remember writing "Showdown is a hit" on there. Oh Lord, my poor parents. But yes, so that was my early and you know what? My dad's sister Muriel, one of like you have these people in your life who you were just extremely spiritually close to. And that would be, of course, my parents, and who are the greatest people that nature has ever created. But my grandmother on my dad's side, and her daughter Muriel, Nanny Simmons, and Muriel, are just really, really close. And I remember once we went to the Hollywood Mall, and Nanny Simmons got her hair done. Right next to it was Specs. I think it was Specs, I'm pretty sure, and whatever record store. And so I would, of course, go in there and fuck around as a kid, go right to the Kiss section, of course. And I remember once I went to the Kiss section, I was like, and I think Dressed to Kill either just came out or I didn't have it yet, one of the two. And so I went there. This is like one of my most treasured memories in my life. And I went there, and Muriel was my Auntie Muriel was sitting out waiting for Nanny Simmons and to get her hair done. And I did whatever I do in specs, and then I come back out and I started telling her about the album, like, oh my god, and she was like, "Do you want your Auntie Muriel to be nice to you?" And I knew exactly where she was going, and I was always very not shy, but like humble person, not humble even, just like I was embarrassed to take things from people, and so I knew what she was going for, and her intention, and I was like, no, no, no. And she goes and fishes out a $10 bill because I think albums you could buy an album for $10 then. But so she gave me the album, and I went and got Dressed to Kill, and it was like it endeared me. Yeah, I was already endeared to her, but it was just such an endearing moment, and it just like something that I think about all the time, and that so whenever I see that album, I can feel it,
Yeah,
Uh,
no doubt. It brings
so yeah,
back
that
that
was
memory for you.
yeah, totally. And so the Kiss things, and then if I didn't know I wanted to be a fucking rock star at that point, which I did, but if I didn't, Kiss Alive too. Holy fucking shit. When I saw that record cover, again, I shat my pantaloons. I, I about shit. I, I can feel it. I can feel Kiss Alive 2 right now talking about it. It wasn't just an album. It was an experience. It was like church. It was rock and roll church. And you got that motherfucking thing and you took the plastic off. You weren't even ready. You weren't even ready for what was coming at you. And you open it up, and what do you see? The fucking stage, all the fire going off. Yeah. All at once, which of course never really happened in Kiss shows, but all of it off at once. And Paul's like this, and his hand is in the fire. I remember probably every pixel of that album, that image, and I was like, oh my fucking God, holy God, oh my God. This is what I want. I'm a rock star. I don't give a shit what happens. This is what I have to do. It's interesting.
Talk about some of your earliest concert experiences. Where were you going to concerts? Were you going to places like the Hollywood Sportatorium, Sunrise Musical Theater? Were you going other places? Like, where were you going to some of those early concerts?
That was it, man. The Sportatorium. The 20 miles out and 1 2-lane road, you know, and just like hell, you have to leave like 2 hours in advance, or else you're gonna miss the show because you'll be sitting in traffic. And and of course you're smoking weed, and the whole point of that trip you make, smoking weed, drinking beer, whatever, on the way out, and finally finding a parking space. And first concert, I think it was my first concert ever, in fact, was Kiss. Shocking. It was the Dynasty, I believe. And it is funny because we were way the hell up there. Me, my mom, my dad, and my aunt Sandy went. And I remember once, and Paul Stanley, yes, yeah, Paul Stanley. I remember like waving, and then he happened to wave at the exact same time back. I was like, oh my God, he waved back at me. Huh? What an idiot. But yeah, so Kiss was, and I remember we bought our t-shirts outside, which of course were all the bootleggers, and they were just awful. And even when I was 10 or whatever age that was, I knew like the shirt's terrible. Of course I wore it anyway, but yeah, it was bad. But yeah, the so that was my first one. And then I mean, everybody, and it was only the sport. I can't tell you, maybe later on I went to the Sunrise Musical Theater. That was pretty much, but the Sportatorium was it. That was like a thing. That's where everybody was, and you got to see all the people and whatever. And but yeah, I mean everybody. Ingve, of course. Never saw Zeppelin, unhappily. Kiss, Ingve, AC, everybody. Iron Maiden, of course. Iron Maiden was a pretty good influence. Ingve was that was of course later, but Ingve was a huge influence on me. I knew all the songs and I ripped all the songs and whatnot, and the Kiss, I'm trying to think, just like all the bands that everybody has seen back then. I just I went there, but I know this sounds odd, but I was never really into watching bands. We'd go to the sportatorium to hang out and see people, but I never really, and watching bands to me it's like an annoyance now. I have to really want to see that. Like Skinny Puppy, I will go see, and I'll go to Chicago to see. Rammstein, I just saw them a couple Octobers ago. And until that moment, the greatest concert I have ever seen in my entire life, bar none and by far, was Skinny Puppy at the Cameo Theater, 1992. Now we're jumping ahead in time, but since it's relevant, I might as well talk about it now. But me and my buddy Carl, God rest his soul, one of my best friends in the world, we went, and so we of course tripped on acid, which made it even 20 times better. And you can actually see the show if you go to YouTube and search the Skinny Puppy 1992 Cameo Theater. The camera is literally right next to us. But it was just a fucking mind fuck. This show was, anybody who has any interest in Skinny Puppy, look that up on the and watch the show. It's the whole show right the way through, and it's holy fucking. So anyway, but until that and then I saw Rammstein. I was like, well, Skinny Puppy's second place, because that was an experience. It changed me, and I just was I spent the next 3, 4, 5 months craving to see Rammstein. I don't even know any of their songs. I know like 3 or 4 of them that I like, but I just went for the spectacle, and holy shit. But yeah, in concerts and whatnot, that was, Sportatorium. Sportatorium was it. Your audience may know Record Haven, old farts like myself. That was the record store. It was right across from MacArthur High School on Hollywood Boulevard, and there was the Record Haven, and then it was just like a little office kind of thing, and that's where I took my guitar lessons from. And Record Haven, man, and I probably discovered Record Haven through that, walking over there. And that's where like you bought records, tapes, of course, in a sense. They probably had bongs. I don't know. But it was one of those places that smelled really good. Tapestries, and that was the place to go. And and in fact, it's funny, I'm jumping ahead here, but I don't know. I was like in my early teens, and I'm at Record Haven with my allowance, and my allowance will pay for just one record. Okay, I got my weekly allowance, so one record. And again, I'm jumping ahead, so we'll have to come back. But so I'm embarrassed to say this, but I have Look What the Cat Track Did from Poison in one hand, and then I have one of my favorite records of all time now in the other hand, which is SOD, Speak English or Die. And I'm going, fuck me. What should I get? Which one should I get? Can you believe it was even a choice?
Quite the contrast, Chris.
Yeah, totally. Well, at that point, that's a coffee cup, ladies and gentlemen. At that point, I think I was still kind of glam, at the time. I was probably coming out of it. I don't even remember the years, but we can get into that later. But so I'm like, oh god damn it, I'll just get Look What the Cat Dragged In. So I got Look What the Cat Dragged In, and I get home and I listen to this piece of fucking shit, and I'm like, I was so fucking pissed off that I got this piece of shit. They just looked so cool. And yeah, I was very upset. I wasn't happy. So, next I'm like, where's my allowance? Where's my allowance? And Friday comes around, I get my fucking allowance, squeeze to Record Haven and get SOD. And that was it, baby. I love that fucking record. I still listen to it now. It's such a beautiful. In fact, like the music I make now is like a 10-piece jazz orchestra. And it's like alternative music. The songs are cool, but it's not like jazz technically, but you would call it that. But my dream is to play live with my 10-piece jazz orchestra and then go off and then as an encore just play SOD, Speak English or Die, right the way through. Just like as the encore. That is like my dream in life now. Over the Powerball even. I want that so
Wow.
bad.
As you were coming of age, right, getting into your teens, even into your early 20s, at what point did you discover local music, the bands, or just someone in particular who you may have got a chance to know who was in a local band? When did that moment happen for you, Chris?
It almost honestly kind of started in high school. I played the we had a band I had a band called Iron Wolf. Fuck yeah. And we were fucking metal, yelp. And it was me, Sherry Tipton. No, this is eighth grade, I do believe. Me, Sherry Tipton, and Mike Perlman. Mike Perlman sang, or after that. But so we played the high school talent show, Pines Middle, and all of a sudden I was popular, and it was weird because I was just a little, a weirdo back then, and I didn't really. I had just a couple friends. I've always been a loner. I'm an only child, so I've always been a loner. I still am. I don't being around people makes me fucking tense. So uh so then I became there was a some sort of assembly, I guess they called it, and with that the students got award for the smartest person, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember they're like, and the most talented is, and I'm like, Sherry, I'm in the back, of course, Sherry Tipton, who was my drummer. And it was like Chris Simmons. I was like, holy shit. And I wasn't happy about it at all. And then so everybody's looking at me as I go up to the stage and, whatever. And I've never experienced embarrassment, so I don't know what it feels like, but I'm sure that was as close to it as I've ever felt. And so I got up there, we got the reward. And then we played the dance. The rock and roll, we played whatever terrible songs they were, and did the drum solo, the guitar solos, and so I was fucking popular, and that's when I met me and Pat, and we've kind of been brothers ever since. Pat Joyce, who actually is a great interview probably for you. Nobody knows the ins and outs of the South Florida music scene like Pat Joyce. And he's the kind of guy who's the spectral opposite of me. He can walk into a bar knowing nobody, and at the end of the night be friends with everybody, and he'll walk out with like 50 new friends who love him more than anybody they've ever met. Like I walk into a bar that I've never known, and I walk out with the same amount of friends I walked in with, which is zero. But yeah, so me and him, so we had that music bond from that point forward, and friendship, of course. And so he was, that was kind of like the foundations of that. And then this guy Ken Barron, it was my first recordings, actually, I believe, or at least the first kind of like structured recordings, because I had been recording, probably I had my 4-track, and I had been recording in probably since I was like 13, 12, 13 years old. So I still have those songs on cassette. But we made a metal project called Dog Dicks, and yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. And it was thrash, and I love it. Even now, like I'll listen to it every now and then and be like, dude, this is fucking metal, yeah. So, but yeah, and then and that kind of spiraled into I guess Nasty, which was my first actual band. I was 15 years old, and I know this because I couldn't drive. I had to come get picked up. I don't know how I met Les. Um, he was like my first contact. Getting back to that subject of the local scene, he was in the Miami scene. There was like different scenes. There was like the Hollywood scene, the Fort Lauderdale scene, the Miami scene. He was the Miami Lakes scene, and he was a character. He was at the time he was Asian. He was Chinese, I believe, And he looked funky, and he, of course, he was homosexual. He's a gay guy, so of course dressed impeccably, stylish, always looked great, and he was a major influence on me in terms of who I was and who, like, how I wanted to present myself and whatnot. And this guy, he was so fucking artistic and just super super duper talent. One of the most talented people I've ever met. And so he turned me on to like the music scene, I think. And so it was kind of like me and him. So um so I don't know how we found Sean. We've Sean Strachan. He was a Cooper City fellow. I might have known him from school. I'm not sure if I think he's older than me. I don't know, but we found him on bass, and then we found Caesar August. I don't know. That's his stage name, and that's all I know. Um, this guy was a fucking madman on drums. Absolutely great drummer and double kick. And when he played shows, you knew it. And it was funny because we were like glam. The songs were glam, and he was fucking metal, like metal to the eye teeth. And but he had a PA system. He had a rehearsal place in Hialeah, and I didn't drive, so I didn't care. So that's who we had. So it was so Nasty was my first official band, other than the Lightning Bolts, or whatever, Black Magic Band with Gary Bosco when I was 10. But uh, yeah, so Nasty. So we started playing, and I still have all these recordings and whatnot. But we start playing in that place, and we get our set together, and we start playing shows. Oh gosh, like Treehouse. I have a list of the place. And I consider this Lick City Gen 1, which is Chris, Les, Sean, and Caesar. That is Lick City Gen 1, but it was Nasty at the time. And we played as Nasty. And if you go to chrisgsimmons.com/interview, you can see pictures. You can see us on the marquee at Playpen, Art Stocks Playpen, and whatnot. I assume it's not there anymore. I don't know. Um, and I kind of got my stage legs, if you will, at that point. And so we played, did some recordings. I just engineered them on the 4-track and whatnot. And then one day, no, let's go in order. So I had this crazy idea. I know, right? Me have crazy ideas. Come on. So I had this crazy fucking idea. I was like, why don't we this? And we're going back to Kiss. Everything always goes back to Kiss. Uh, uh, why don't we build a stage? Let's build a fucking stage, and we can to make it easy, transportable, and stable. We'll use milk crates. So we implemented this. We built a stage, and he had out back of the it was like his basement. No, it wasn't a basement. It couldn't have been a basement because it was in Hialeah, but it was completely soundproof studio, where he jammed, where his bands jammed. And so, but out back was a cement area then. And so every day after practice, or yeah, after practice, it was at nighttime. Me and Les would go in his car because he would give me a ride because he drove and I didn't. I was only 15, and we would go but behind Publix and steal as many milk crates as we could, and then bring them to practice. Repeat every night until we got 50, 60, 70, whatever milk crates. And then so what we did was we built this stage that consisted of two side panels of about maybe 8 feet high by 6 feet ish tall, which would cover the amps. Behind them would be milk crate, milk crate, milk crate, milk crate, milk crate, which would act as stairs that we could walk on top of and get on top of these things and, rock out. And so, and then in the middle between those two was maybe like two milk crates, three milk crates high, and that was the drum riser. So we had this complete stage. We painted it. It was painted. And then behind this is made by Les. And this was the Lick City logo. And I think I'm getting ahead of myself because we were still nasty then, but it was nasty slash Lake City, so whatever. What we discovered is that uh, we didn't think about this at the time, but the stage that we built wouldn't fit in any fucking club that we played because if you if the drummer they would not the drummer wouldn't have room because look at the look at the lights you so we pared it down to like 4 foot sections, and if you can see on either side of this image here, those are the side view, but shorter of this the side milk crate stage thing.
Did the
So we
lineup did the lineup change at all at this point, or was it still the same as Nasty?
when we were nasty, Caesar um all of a sudden came and said, I want another guitarist because he was fucking metal, okay, and we were glam. I mean, we were it was metally, but it really wasn't. It was more glam than metal. So I was like, no. And he's like, please, why don't we just try it? Just try it, just try it. And I was like, and the band is like, let's just try it. And I'm like, okay, fine. So next rehearsal, he brings this guy in. Okay, we're all super cool looking. I got hair down to my ass. It's blonde or half blue, half pink, whatever the fuck it was. Les is completely cool looking, of course, etc. He brings this guy in with a button down shirt, feathered hair to here. He looks like he would be fit very well in an office, not in a fucking rock and roll band. And but we gave him a chance, and I guess he was good. I don't even remember him enough to know. I don't even think I ever learned his name. And and so it basically came down to, he's like, we're gonna have this guy in or I quit. Caesar, the drummer. And so I was like, I'll get my stuff. And me and Les left. Sean stayed. And so me and Les were like, well, whatever, we'll find people. We are the band. Pause. How I found the name Lick City. This is kind of a fun story. There was I can't remember the name of it. I wish I could, deeply wish. It was 163rd Street and 95. There was a record store right there. I wish I could remember the name of it, but I used to go there all the time because Les was a Miami fellow, so I was able to frequent this place. And it was a very small, and they had a bunch of like really cool magazines that people would just make by stacking 6 or 7 pieces of photocopied paper and stapling it, fold it in half, and then sell it. And so, of course, I love those things. And so that's why we used to do that with Lick City at our shows. We'd have those little books at our shows. And so if anybody, I don't even have one. So if anybody has one, you have a collector's item. So when I'm dead, sell it on eBay for $20. Boy, you'll get it. And so there was one that caught my attention then, and it was called Suck City. And I remember I can see it. It had like a blimp it was a hand drawn thing, and it was a blimp over a city with like a light coming down or something. And I was like, Suck City. I'm stealing this. And then as I cogitated over it and whatnot, I was like, Lick City. Lick City. This is the name. Lick City. Fuck yeah. And then so of course I came back to Les, and he of course loved it. And Sean and Caesar, they all loved it. So we were so fuck Nasty, because Nasty was terrible. I never liked it. And so then from that point on, we were Lick City, and then we had the logo and the stage, because the stage was after Lick City, I'm pretty sure. So
Do you remember the first show that you had as Lick City and where that was?
of Nasty or Lick City,
Lick City.
I can probably guarantee it was Treehouse. We played the Treehouse all the time. Treehouse, Art Stocks, Button, played Button, I think Button North, the one on the beach. Um, and then later on, which I'll get to, we played other places. So this is still the nascent days of Lake City. So anyway, so it was just me and Les at that point then. So I think there was a band called Cherry with I'm sure there was like 600,000 bands named Cherry at the time, but this particular one was in South Florida, and it was a friend of mine. I would call him a good friend of mine, but I haven't seen him in 20 years, 30 years. But Bill McKelvey. I don't know if we stole him or if uh Brian quit. I don't know, but Brian Friedman, we found him and he ended up being our drummer. And he was exactly what I wanted in a drummer. Just his technique was awesome, and he was one of the funniest fucking people I've ever met in my life. And there's some pictures of him on chrisgsimmons.com/interview. If you want to go, his name is Brian. You'll see him. And so we started playing, and of course Sean eventually ended up coming back to us because Caesar wasn't one of us in terms of musical style. He was metal. And and Sean was metal too. He was more metal, I think, than glam. And I think that shows when you see him in the pictures. He kind of stands out as, which one of these kids? But he was a great, great bass player. A fucking great bass player. And I'm sure still is, I would hope. So anyway, he ended up coming back. And so this was Lick City Gen 2. Chris G. Simmons. Les named me Christy Jism at the time, and I allowed it, but it was purely off the cuff, informal. Sean Strachan and Brian Friedman, and that was the Lick City at that point.
Talk about
So
the look of the band, because as you
yeah,
mentioned,
thank you for
like some of you may have shared similar aesthetics when it came to the overall look, but you also mentioned that Sean was a little bit different in terms of his look. So
yeah.
talk about that as far as just the overall image of the band, Lick City.
Thank you. It is an excellent, excellent question, or a topic, I guess I should say. Les, all of this is Les. Okay, he was it. The hairstyles was all him. So we all had the sweeping hair to the right or left or whatever, I can't tell. And his was to the right, or his was opposite us. And we knowing no, we couldn't because we had cuts. But he was also a hairdresser, and he did all of our hair and makeup, which is why we always looked fucking great. So he look, the clothes, everything less. We ended up, this was kind of, I think, maybe before, but we ended up kind of during the Cameo days, late, I guess 87, whatever, before, like the months leading up to the Cameo Theater gig. We went, it was like a taxi, it was uniform. It was like taxi pants, short jacket. I don't know if you call it a mess jacket. I'm not sure, but they were in all the rage back in the 80s. Oh boy. Who was dressing us in the 80s? I don't know, but I blame Versace. And then we had those suspenders that we didn't use, that we just had hanging. That was like our thing for the Cameo shows, like our little look. But yeah, it was all him. And so I don't know what happened. Somehow it was probably less because he was connected. Everybody knew who he was, and so and this dude, he was like, he was everything you wanted in a front man, and a friend, and a just like, he had the connections and whatnot. He was a nut. He would come into your house and turn shit upside down. Like if your parents had like bric-a-brac or photographs how do you say, the frame, you'd leave, all that shit would be turned upside down. Like he would, and anything he could be turned upside down would be turned upside down when he left. That was like his trademark. That was his shtick, was the turning shit upside down in your house. And God, that guy was so great. And so anyway, he ended up hooking us up with. Actually, before that, we had a guy named Craig Cherry, who I believe is still around. He actually dated my mother back, sheer coincidence, but and he started hooking us up with gigs, and kind of like he didn't kind of acted as our informal manager. And he kind of like because I think he was in popular bands in the 50s and 60s and whatnot, and then I don't know what he was doing at that time, but so he kind of like showed us certain things that you should do, and how you talk, and how you present yourself to the media, blah blah fucking blah. And so and then this guy Reno, who I've never heard from since, he was great. He owned a warehouse off Hines, or maybe like, I can't remember. But anyway, it was a big 2-story, beautiful warehouse, and he would let us rehearse there for free all the time. He loved us. He got us gigs too as well, and he kind of acted like as our informal manager as well. So anyway, then we ended up getting sure um oh yeah, okay. The first band we played as Lick City. First show we played as Lick City, and I'm taking us back again. We were nasty. We had no drummer. This was before Caesar, I believe. Yeah, no, it was before Caesar. It was a battle of the bands. We hadn't quite learned not to play battles of the bands yet. And once you play a battle of the bands, you learn immediately never to play battles of the bands. And so it was battle of the bands in a place called Club Illusions, I believe. And it was an all ages club, and it was a pretty cool place to go. And this is where I got my first taste of fucking rock and roll shows. We played, I think, 4 songs, and I did the whole guitar spinning thing, which nobody was doing yet. I stole it from Lita Ford. Lita Ford's guitarist did it, and I was like, I stored it in RAM for later. It was in the file. I'm sorry, back then it was a filing cabinet, so I had it in the file back there. So I did the switch, which fucking the whole audience went nuts when I did. I have this video still of this show, the entire show. And so we had to borrow a friend, my friend from high school, Ken Barron, who is the first most funny person I've ever met. Brian Freeman was the second, just to make that clear. And he was the Dog Dicks. He was the guy I was in Dog Dicks with. And he lent us their drummer. There was in a band called Heebie Jeebies, I believe, and his name was Mark Paradise. I mean, what a rock star name, dude! Shit. So we rushed in, got him to play this Battle of the Bands. We played the Battle of the Bands at Club Illusion, and this is back then. It wasn't like this ever again, really, or it kind of tapered off in the scene unless you were huge, like Tough Luck. If you back there was like a band called Tough Luck. They were like the band, and but like other than that, like this was like the pinnacle of people shoved against the stage, rocking out, and I had ballerina tights on, and I had taped lollipops. I took electrical tape and taped lollipops all down my legs, and for the show. And so all the girls up front were grabbing the lollipops off, and squeezing my balls, etc. It was great. I remember one just squeezed the shit out. That wasn't great, but the lollipops was a thing. That was like kind of like our almost like a trademark for a while. But you couldn't really use it all the time. You had to use it only at shows where people were shoved up against and rock. The place was packed. It was like a concert. And that really gave me my first taste of like, yes, this people screaming for you, people grabbing you, people tearing lobsters off, lollipops. Should have been lobsters on my pants. Shit. Well,
Lobsters
that's
would
like
have
the more
been that could have
upscale crowd,
lobsters could have gone in a completely different direction, Chris.
especially if they were live. So you think a
Right.
girl grabbing your balls is bad? Try a lobster. But but yeah, that was I'm glad I remembered that right now. Thank you for that. But
Kind of thinking about just Lick City's evolution and as the band was kind of gaining traction because it seemed like things were starting to happen for Lick City. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the band also did make it up to New York City. Uh,
that's bullshit. We
yeah.
ended up getting this management team, Jack and Sheree. It was Talent Line International, they were called. I think they still exist. I could be wrong. Uh, and they discovered us, and they were like blown away. So they put a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort into us. And so they had this press release. Did I give you the press release? I should have. I don't know if I posted it. It's total bullshit. Like I had never even been to New York City at the time, but they I guess it was like an image thing. So uh, So yeah, but they put a lot of money and they paid for a lot of stuff, and they were good with, again, teaching you how to act and whatnot. And we signed a contract with them and had to go to meetings all the time, and which was Brian Friedman, the drummer. We were all around this table, and he would totally fuck with me always. He was able to make his throat stick out like a frog. Like if he wanted to, he would go "Mer," and it would stick out like a frog does. So we'd all be talking. We're all around these executives of Talent Line International. We're all, Lick City, and then surrounded by these fucking executive muckety mucks. And if I happened to look, and I couldn't look at him because he would fuck with me. So, and if I happened to make the mistake of looking at him, this fucking asshole, he would do dead serious face and just do the frog thing, right, right. And I, I can barely contain myself now thinking about it, and I would just bust out laughing, and I would start crying because I would be laughing so hard. I wouldn't be able to stop. Like I would have to excuse myself and go fuck. And he knew this is what would happen. So they ended up getting us a lot of gigs. We played like Peacock Park and the Hollover Beach, and of course, the standard clubs and whatnot. So they actually hyped us to the point where they had this entire ceremony. They rented out a ballroom, rented us limousines, rented us tuxedos. There's actually pictures on chrisgsimmons.com/interview. You can go there and look at these pictures of us. If you see us in we have our little award. It has a gold record on it. Very, very misleading there. And it was a whole thing. The press was there. It was like a real thing. Total bullshit. Like there was no award. It was an award, but the award was made up from Jack and Shireen. But it was like a big thing, and it got us a lot of press, and that was the whole point. So they knew what they were doing in terms of hype and press.
Sure.
I was kind of in my nascent days of drug use at the time, so a lot of this shit is fuzzy. That's why I really love this show right now, because when I watch it with your other guy, like I learned so much about Kerry Peak. Like I love this guy. I've known him for 30 years. I didn't know about his car accident. Like I was like, holy shit. And I feel bad because, that's when we got Jimmy, which we can get into later, of course. But I didn't know about all that until I read. I love that interview. It's such a fucking. This is a great show. Like when I watch I don't always have the patience to watch it right the way through. Or I don't have time, sometimes. But I'll watch people I know, and I'm like, oh shit, oh really, oh wow, oh I remember that, that kind of shit. Yeah, this is a great show, and it's a valuable resource, and I'm really grateful to you for having it, especially now that I'm on.
I appreciate that, Chris.
Because I'm getting a lot of memories that I forgot. So yes.
I want to kind of go into 1987 because I feel like 87 is where a lot had changed for not
Yeah.
just the band, but for everyone as people, because you lost someone very close to you. Less, uh, perhaps we can get into a little bit about for those that may not be as familiar with what had happened and just the impact that it had on the band and you as individuals, because you were all really close.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we were me and Les were the band, absolutely. And I wrote the songs and I had the concept, but I should say, I wrote the songs. He had the concept, and so we were. It was very important. Each of us were 50-50. I wasn't more important than him, and he wasn't more important than me, and it's just how it was. So anyway, so yeah, we were rolling along nicely. We got our award. We were voted the best band, best up and coming band award. I wish I still had that. I don't know where the fuck it is. Probably in Jacket or Shireen's attic somewhere. But I wish I had it on the wall behind me, so I could pretend I have a gold record. So yeah, so and we ended up land. Oh yeah, so we ended up landing a gig at opening up for Debbie Gibson. That's right, Debbie Gibson. I don't know why the fuck we were opening
Wow.
up for Debbie Gibson, but it was a big show, it was a big deal. And so the night comes. Tomorrow is the gig. We're practiced. We're fucking ready. We practiced we did this at like 3, 4 times a night, and like 5 days a week, 6 days a week, 7 days a week. I think we were like 7 days a week because that's all we wanted to do. Like I didn't want to take off practice. None of us did. Back then you're hungry. We go to practice the night before. We're all ready to fucking go. And last thing he says to us is, "Don't go out because we need to get up early for get down there, pack our shit, get down there for bring the stage." No, I'm just kidding. And the fucking milk crate stage. Uh, and so we need to be fresh in the morning. We need to sound check and be there at whatever time and be on. And we're all like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So we all go home and so the next morning I get a phone call. It's Brian Friedman, and he's like, "No, listen, something happened, and something happened, and uh, and I was like, fuck you. He's fucking with me, you're not gonna do this today of all days." He's like, "No, I'm dead serious. You need to come to the hospital." I can't remember what hospital, probably Broward General. Something happened to Les. So yes. So turns out what happened. Uh, Turned out what happened was some fucking pieces of shit, gay bashers, they call them. He went to the Copa after disobeying his own rule of not going out. He went to the Copa, and which is the gay bar in Florida. Totally fun place to go, even if you're not gay. Like going there is fun. What happened was these pieces of shit targeted him because he was little guy. He was shorter than I am and skinny, and so he was clearly an easy target for a fucking asshole. And so they proceeded to, I guess, assault him and his friend. His friend, there was a controversy about him running away and not helping less. But you can't criticize somebody in that situation because you're not there. Your life isn't in danger. They probably had no chance to fight these guys in the first place. They probably were not armed. So anyway, they ended up, smashing his head against the car, and he went into a coma. And so that's how we arrived at the hospital, and he was in. It was very disturbing. My first experience with death. I was 16, I believe. Yeah, I was 16 at the time because it was early '87. It was May 9th, I believe, and yeah, May 9th is when that happened. The early morning hours, and so I think he lingered for a couple days, and they called us, and they were like, "You need to come say goodbye." So we did, and yeah, so that was the end of Lick City Generation, basically Gen 2, which which was Les, me, Brian, and Sean. So we were kind of, the management's like, "Well, what are you gonna do? What do you want to do? This pretty much nullifies our contract, if you want it to." And we're 16 years old. As coarse as it may sound, that's not going to stop us. The death of somebody, unless it's me who writes the songs, is not going to stop us. And it sounds horrible, but it's how every band is. Metallica. Can you imagine if Metallica stopped when Cliff Burton passed away? That would be ridiculous. So let's just take a break and see. What I should mention beforehand is that we already had the Cameo gig booked. It was our first big motherfucking gig. It was the Cameo Theater, which is like the place to play in Miami, in South Florida in general, unless you're going to the Sportatorium. The Cameo Theater was like, that's like a dream. So we had that gig, and we were already postering for, we were already flying for, we were rehearsing for it. preparing, etc. We had our milk crates ready and we used them. Us and those fucking milk crates. So we were kind of like, okay, let's just take a minute and and just kind of regroup. Now, this happened, like I say, in May 9th. The Cameo gig was May 30th. So we had about 2 weeks after the whole process was ended, um, you know, to figure out what we were going to cancel it. Are we going to go do it? Who's going to sing? I wasn't able to sing at that point. I just did backing vocals. I was not even close to being able to sing. So we looked around, and found this guy named Jeffrey David, which is his middle name. I don't even know what his last name is, but Jeffrey David is all you need to know. So we found him, and he absolutely great singer, perfect singer, could hit the notes, and the ones he couldn't, he could hit a low register of an octave down and still strong. So there we have Lick City Gen 2, which is Chris, Jeffrey David, Sean, and Brian. And so we already had the opening bands, this band called New Impact, and needless to say, we didn't play the Debbie Gibson gig, which was a shame. So we had New Impact and Young Turk. Young Turk was pretty darn popular as well. They were Miami, Hialeah scene. Crazy bunch of guys. They were nuts. Yeah. So the gig, played the Cameo gig. He didn't even know the words. He just faked his way through it, most of it. He could hear the melodies in his head, and I think that's pretty much what he went by. And so yeah, played it. It was good. We didn't pack it. I think Jack and Shireen thought we were going to pack the place, which is absurd. I don't know what the seating is, but it's maybe like 10,000, 5,000 maybe. I don't know what it is. It's like a old time theater, so it's one of those that's got the upper floors. But it was what I thought was really odd was that Jack and Shireen made this big, like, and you can see it I think in some of those pictures at chrisgsimmons.com/interview, those pictures there. You'll see a picture of Les, because we wanted to honor him, and we had a moment of reflection with there, of course, and whatnot. And but it was like a big a hard frame, or what do you say when you attach it to cardboard, corrugated, or a foam board, so it was professionally mounted on foam board, so it was stiff. It wasn't a roll-up poster anymore. And it had Lex, because he went by Lex Looks, by the way. And so his real name was Les Wan. And so and we hung it above everything, just as he watched over us or whatever. Whatever. So, but the fucking bizarre. His parents came down from China. I know. I don't know if they came in from China or if they came in from New York City. Maybe they're from New York. I feel like they came from China, but that doesn't make sense. I could be wrong, but I don't know whose fucking idea this was, but it wasn't mine. Or I think it was Jack and Shireen. They were always full of wild ideas, but they they had us all sign this hard mounted poster and give it to his parents, which, first of all, is bizarre. Second of all, what are they going to fucking do with this thing? Like, if it was a roll up poster, okay, yeah, you roll it up and you could stick it wherever you put your stuff. But it was I don't know how would they fit it in their car, like on the way home from the Cameo, you know what I mean? Like, because they came to the show. And so it was. I think about it every now and then, and I cringe. It's one of those things where you're like, oh, why did I allow this to happen? But but yeah, it was wild. We actually ended up. I feel this is another one of these cringy things. Like, we kind of like took over Les's apartment, because he lived there part time with his boyfriend Brad, who was a fucking great guy. I love this guy. Um, and what's weird though, like in the '80s. Like, we were persecuted for having by other bands and really even venues of having a gay singer. Like, this is the artist community. This is the musicians. Like, this is where the one place that you think, and it would be the island of salvation from such bullshit, but even in the bands, they didn't like us because we had a gay singer. And they were like a lot, like Rated X in particular, they would fucking always rag on us for having a gay singer. And I'll tell you actually a fun story about Les. And if do you know what chaps are? They are like cowboy pants with the ass hanging out. With there's no ass, it's just leggings. And Les had this idea that he was going to go on stage in these chaps with his fucking ass hanging out. And I didn't care because I let Les do whatever the hell he wants because he was like, to me, he was like the art king, and I love that. Like I'm an Andy Warhol guy. Like I love the art guys, and he was an art guy. He was an art king, and I love him for it. And so Les was an art guy, and I loved him for it. And so whatever. Brian Friedman was like, I will not go on stage with you with your fucking ass hanging out of those things. And I believe there might be a picture on that website of him. He's behind and he's got his pink tights on because he gave in and wore the pink tights over his ass with these fucking chaps. But
when Les wasn't performing or wasn't on stage, can you just quickly describe just who he may have been on a regular Tuesday afternoon, just who Les was then?
the same Les as at practice, the same Les as at stage. He was a personality, he was a force, he was a personality and hilarious. And everything he did with style and gusto, and we always went on crazy adventures to, stores, and he was always doing something. He would go to the stores and turn their shit upside down too. Like if they had a picture in a frame, it would be upside down, he was a personality, man, and Les was Les no matter where he was, and I admire that. And I always strove to be that way. And years later, my friend Charles Wheelis, who was always good to me, and we could bring him up with Slampire's album, my first real album in 1991 when we're there. He was talking to a girlfriend of mine, and he said he was telling me about this conversation. He's like, yeah, we were talking about how Chris is always Chris. Like there's no pretense. It's like Chris is, and I was so proud of myself at that point. I remember feeling pride because, and I associate that with Les, because like Les was fucking Les, and if you didn't like it, you can fuck off. And that's how that's how I've always lived my life, and that's one of the things I can attribute to him as well. Chris is Chris, and if you don't like it, fuck you.
There may not have been an actual album that was released, but there were
No.
demos that did eventually see the light of day. Perhaps you can just talk a little bit about just that experience, Chris, with those demos, where they were recorded, and just some memories you may have of those experiences as well.
Yeah. Well, I was always recording demos in my parents' room. You can imagine little Chris cross-legged with his guitar. Back in the days where you could just hit motherfucking record and it recorded, as opposed to setting up a bunch of bullshit. And by the time you get set up to record now, you're out of creativity. But yeah, the first we did with Nasty, in fact, in Caesar's rehearsal area, and we used those extensively in getting our songs out, and my demos were kind of like popular among the denizens, among the South Florida scene, cognoscenti, if you will. And so everybody had them. I made covers for them, and little a lot of people still have them, and they'll be like, hey, look what I found. And so we had those. I still have them, and then I actually sell them on I don't know if they're on I think they're on Bandcamp, actually. If you go to my discography, you can find them. And I did actually. I put I think I have this 86 and 87 Lick Cities, which is, I think, and maybe 88. I think there's some Jeff on there too with 88, which are the best sound because my skills at recording, got better. But yeah, we distributed them. We did not record in the studio, unhappily. I wish we could have. You know what? None of my bands ever had professional recordings, but yeah, those demos are pretty much all Lick City had in terms of recordings. Unhappily, I was still kind of writing like glam, but it wasn't anymore. I was going way different. I was like the John Lennon thing, how like they were all poppy, and then he kind of went off the fucking rails. I was going down that slope, because you can't do the same thing all the time, obviously. And glam, admittedly, is although we kind of had a different take on it. We didn't sound like any of the other glam. My stuff was different. But yeah, so Brian quit, and one of my best friends in the world is Carl Stengel, and he passed away. He and Billy Allman. So Billy was a drummer, and so he was like, "Fuck yeah, I'm gonna get into something." So, and he was always at the shows, and stuff. They're he was always very supportive, and so Billy Allman ended up being our drummer. So, and he was good because he was a good drummer, but he also allowed me to shape his drumming, which really I think made our music better when it came to doing because before, but in Lick City he would just do Brian's parts. And then as he evolved and I helped him evolve into drumming, because I'm not a drummer. So having somebody shape your drumming who isn't a drummer makes for interesting stuff, and he had a lot of really good, he had, again, shaky timing, which sucks, but other than that, his drummer, he was like the best drummer. He was so fucking creative and good and just did like, you always, like, we clicked. Like, I imagined something, and if he didn't do, I would tell him, or he would just do it. Like, he just knew what sounded cool and different, and I think being different ended up hurting us in the long run, but we can get into that. So played a bunch of shows, Lick City, same places, Playpen, Summers, Button, and whatnot. But and we played with Jeff. We had an office. My mom worked at an office on Ravenswood and Sheridan Street, I believe. It was like a big office complex. Probably still is, I would imagine. And she knew the owner, and he let us play there after hours. And it was turned into a den of debauchery, as you can imagine, because at that point we were getting into harder and harder drugs. And I don't talk about drugs lightly because they're not fucking cool. They ruined my life for over 30 years. And I had fun and I had some great experiences, but I deeply regret wasting so much of my life on shit like the drinking and drugs.
I
And
think
we can.
I think one of the ironies to call out too is on one of the flyers that you shared with me, Chris, where you all played All Over Beach. It was a Rockers Against Drugs show.
We did cocaine before that show. We were on cocaine that show, as a matter of fact. And I have it in my notes to mention that. I forgot, but yeah, yeah, we were definitely potheads, of course, and definitely I was a drunk. I didn't have a chance. Like, I started when I was 15, and with this guy named Cliff Moss, who unfortunately I offended back later in life. And I feel, Cliff, if you're listening to this, please forgive me. I didn't mean to offend you, and I am deeply, deeply sorry. But he was a good guy, but he turned me on to weed. And I remember the first time I smoked weed. I remember being in a dream, and I got scared because I couldn't get out of it. Like, I felt like I was dreaming, and it was a terrifying experience. But and then this guy Matt, he turned me on to. He called it chocolate, but it was mescaline, which is like LSD, and that was in Pines Middle School. And I loved it. It was like, uh, it was like, I guess, like a trip, I guess. And I didn't do LSD till a little later with Pat, as a matter of fact, first time. But but yeah, and I was a drunk even before that because this guy Mike Capozzi, his parents were really rich. His parents were so rich, I think they bought three houses on a cul-de-sac and attached them. I think his dad was in the mob. I'm pretty sure because he did go away, but he spoiled us, and they didn't care, man. They had beer in the fridge, and they didn't care what the kids do, and it was always kids around, and we were always drunk, and so I had no chance, so I was an alcoholic at 15 years old, a pothead at 15 years old, and cocaine at 16, 17, and blah blah blah. So it sucks, and I'm not proud of it. I say it as a warning, if any, or as a story, really, to anything else. But it's not.
When the 90s came around, did you slow it down as far as that, or did
I
you
never slowed down.
amp
I
it?
didn't slow
Okay.
down until I was in my 40s. Yeah,
So
it got.
let's talk about that transition now because we came from the 80s, right? And as even looking through a lot of the photographs that you had shared, even the ones that are on your site, you can see this shift, not just musically, but also aesthetically, just from the way that you were dressing, the way that the decade had now shifted. So talk about that. Just what was it like being Chris G. Simmons as the 90s came around, and what were you doing musically once Lick City wrapped up?
Well, we would have to go honestly to the 88 still, because we're still at Billy. Okay, and we're in Gen Gen 4, Lick City Gen 4, 1988. We got Chris, that's me by the way. Jeffrey David, the singer who did our cameo shows, Billy, the new drummer, and Sean Strachan. Okay, so and we were doing shows and blah blah blah, but like my writing was starting to shift like big time. I was going. I mean, we had this like the song, one song called "All the Time," which was like an acoustic-y song, and it didn't work. Like we couldn't play glam, and I didn't even give a fuck about glam. I was done playing glam a year probably before this. I didn't write it anymore. I had my glam shit, and that was the end. So I was getting shifting more into that, and that's where Lick City kind of went. So Lick City was still existing. We were still playing as Lick City, but we were playing the new stuff. But and I was not only did I have my Lick City stuff, but I was always writing. 88 was my most productive year, and I didn't even realize it. But like, I have a book called Songs of Love and Drugs, which I wrote. It's all my songs up to 93, I think. And what I did is I wrote this because I couldn't like remember any of my stuff, because drugs, and and two, I realized I could copyright all of my lyrics in one go by putting them on a fucking book. So I did, and I realized because and I had also started going. This is later on. I think I wrote this in 2006 or something, or 2016. I can't remember, but I was remastering all my demos from the 80s and whatnot. And I realized like I wrote like 80 songs and like 60 plus of them are in this book with words. The ones with words are in this book. I was like, in one year, I wrote like fucking almost 100 songs that year. But yeah, that was my most productive year, 88. And so yeah, we played the shows, and the music shifted. And eventually Jeffrey, I think, well, he was a construction worker, and I think we took up a lot of his time. But so he quit. So much for generation what? Yes, generation four. That was the end of that. So then Sean ended up quitting too. He didn't like the shift, so he quit. So it was just me and Billy at that point, which doesn't make much of a band, but we still played anyway. Like me and him played we had the office, we had a little PA system. Um, and then my buddy Pat, who I mentioned that I met in high school, again, we were brothers, and everybody thought we were brothers. And so I don't even know. I don't know if he played bass yet, or if I can't remember. He probably did. I guess I honestly don't know. He plays guitar too, but so we were just like got Pat, and so it was me, Pat, and Billy, and I think that was it. Oh yeah, so we were three piece at that point. So anyway, we're in the office of debauchery, and basically it was just drug doing. We played a lot. Like we played, and we cultivated the songs, and we ended up getting my good friend Rob Diaz, who we are close friends to this day, and I love him deeply and dearly. He's a great man, and his wife is too. Well, great woman. And so he is an excellent singer. So he was the backup singer. Um, and actually, let me bring you back to 88. We did a show as Lick City with Jeffrey. It was one of our last shows. In fact, we did the Button South, which was kind of a big deal to play the Button South. That was like a venue. They didn't let just anybody play. Everybody was there, our parents, our friends. It was like going to be our big show. We looked great. It was going to be great. And I come out and we play a song or two, I don't even know, and I break a string. I don't have a backup. I wasn't a professional then. I was just a fucking idiot. I don't think any of us had backup guitars. So I run backstage and just grab somebody's guitar. Okay, which is A is crazy, obviously. B, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know whose guitar it was. I didn't even know who was playing with us. I just opened this guy's fucking case, take his guitar, which is tuned. We didn't even tune like to that back then. I tuned to a dial tone, like way back when you'd pick up a phone and it would go ooh. So I thought that was E, and that's how I would tune I never had a tuner. So our E, we were never tuned A440. It was however my guitar was tuned, that's what we tuned. So I had to go through the rigmarole of, so I grabbed this guy's guitar, untune it to whatever fucking wacky tuning we were at, and we start to play. And I make this this still haunts me, this decision. Because we're Lick City still. We play rock and roll, but we were transitioning to my new stuff, and a lot of it was really mellow. And there was this one song called After Denise that we played. And shout out to Denise Hecker. And so we're like, what do we play? What do we play? And I was like, just do After Denise. Now, big mistake number one, I have a singer here, a front man. He doesn't sing that song. I sing that song. B, I sing like a dead cow. Okay. C, it's slow. So we're going to lose the audience. We should not have even had that on our set list. And when I think about it, it bothers me. Like even now, I'm like, oh God, it's like one of those things that just, it'll never go away. Like when I'm dying, it'll probably be the last thing I think about. And so we start to play it, and here comes the owner of the guitar on stage walking out. Fuck. And he's like yelling at me and shit. I was like, just fucking chill out, blah, blah. So he ends up letting me use the guitar, and we play this fucking song, and it's so bad. It was the worst gig I've ever played. It was actually the only bad gig I've ever played. And I look over to the stage manager, and he's like, like last song, you're it. And so we ended up playing whatever song. But that was a nightmare, and everybody's got one. You know, everybody's got the nightmare gig. And that was with Jeffrey. Anyway, so he ended up quitting. So we're with Billy and Pat. We're a three-piece now with Rob, because Rob was kind of part-time. He had a real job. You know, he owned an insurance company, I think. So, but that kind of gave way, evolved. That was into what was the Vagues. But we spent years fucking around, like from 80 to 90 to I don't even think we were the Vagues to like 91 maybe. So there was a lot of fucking around at the time, you know, not accomplishing much, but we practiced. We were like crazy. We practiced constantly. Like it's like what we like to do, get fucked up and play.
How did the scene change at that point when the Vig started?
Well, you know, of course they had the transition from glam to Guns N' Roses, I think was the thing. So everybody at that point was Guns N' Roses with cowboy boots. And in fact, there's a flyer on that website, the interview site, and it says on the back of it, it says the Lick City Guarantee. And it's hilarious because we take all of the shit that's, you know, no gypsy headbands, no cowboy boots, like all this shit. And it's kind of funny. And that was on the back of our flyers, all of our flyers for a while. And it was kind of like a smack in the face to that stupid crap. But because we were, after the glam phase, we weren't anything. We were just us, you know, like we didn't follow any trends, you know, we just did what we did. And I certainly didn't let, you know, current trends influence for the most part, you know, I didn't let trends in. I don't think in trends. I just think in art, and it comes to me, and that's that. I have no control over what I create. It's like a bodily function, you know. I just create it. I'm not responsible. So yeah, and so like 1991, I was making my own albums, and so I recorded my first actual like album in the studio in 1991 called Slampires, the Cactus Killing EP. And it was pretty influenced by my life with the Thrill Kill cult. It was actually a pretty good influence on me. But in 1990, I went to an art school, if you will. It was like the Art Institute or Full Sail, if you know what I mean. But it was down in South Beach. So I got to hang out a lot in South Beach, and we were playing at the time. We were playing in a warehouse in Hialeah, so I think it was the beginnings of the Vagues at that point. But so yeah, and so we were playing in this warehouse in Hialeah. Me, Pat, um, I don't, I guess Jimmy. I don't remember for some reason. I don't remember him being. I think we were a three piece at that time. I think it was me, Pat, and Billy because we were three piece for a long time and in at intervals because we played together for a long time. We were together for like 7 years or something. Um, and we came up with a lot of the stuff, a lot of the songs. I'm trying to think, and you know what? A lot of these songs that we played, I don't even have recorded. So 91 goes into 92. The vague. So 92 somehow we got Jimmy, but first we recorded this. I got a better drum machine. It was more realistic. So I recorded a 3 song demo, sold it at Uncle Sam's. It was all me, but nobody else needed. I still just put their names on like Pat and Billy and stuff, but I did it because I didn't need anybody. So and we got airplay on KPX, the radio station. I don't know if they still have that. It was like a college radio station.
It was 88.5 was Piper High School.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, call it. Okay, Piper. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that was instrumental for so many of us. You know, they were good to us, to everybody. Is what I mean. So yeah, we got some airplay on that, and I don't know how we got Jimmy. Actually, Carrie Peak's episode educated me on how we got Jimmy because I can't remember. I was still fucked up at the time. So, but we got Jimmy, and Jimmy is it's funny because he was kind of like the antithesis to the rest of us because he was like straight laced. He didn't do drugs. I don't even know if he drank. And you know, the rest of us were shit faced every night of practice and smoking and drinking and whatnotting, and he was not. You know, and but fucking great guitarist, man. He's one of he is probably the best guitarist I've played with ever, but better than me, that's for sure. And so we got him, and I actually feel bad about the Carrie thing. I didn't know about his car accident. I didn't know, you know, that Jimmy quit during that tragic time or anything like that. Because we knew Carrie, but I didn't. We weren't like friends like we are now, like or we were later. Um, and so but yeah, and so and it's funny actually. There was a guitar. We were trying out guitarists because we didn't want to be a three piece. I wanted to sing. I didn't want to play guitar except for part time. And so we're looking for guitarists, and it was I don't know what we used. I don't know if Craigslist was around. Was there internet then? I don't remember. But however we got this guy, there was this guy, and we went through many of them, but
You used to
there was
go to
this
the
one
you
guy.
used to go to the music stores and pull down the little tabs.
Oh, the
Remember
tabs,
that?
okay.
I don't
Maybe
know
we
if that
did that.
I don't know if that's how you did it, but that's how I remember a lot of bands looking for people. They would have these little tabs you can pull from, and
Yeah,
the
it was
phone
like the
number would
internet.
be there. Yeah, yeah,
The internet was our version of the internet. Yeah,
right.
we probably did that. I would imagine, and we were, you know, known then, so it was probably easier. That's why we had so because in my journals, I see that well, I see that we're going through a lot of people, and we're playing in a warehouse in well off Orange Drive, and it's in a kind of a sketchy part of town. There's a lot of bands there. Poser played there, Keith Bowman, Roger, and a guy named Rich Headley. So they played there. Naked Rhythm was right next to us. We actually were in Naked Rhythm. They moved out of our place. It was cool because our place had a full front, had a door, like a swinging door, not just so it had like a window and a door. And then beyond that was the warehouse door. So you could put the AC in the door like a normal house. You know, it was great. It was a great place we lucked out. And then they ended up moving. They were next door to us. They played, and then so we all played there. It was like a little scene in itself. So, but yeah, we played the Vagues. But we were actually the Chemicals first, and I think that was how we got on KPX was the Chemicals, which is a stupid name, but we had a shit ton of names. I still have the lists, and we just couldn't come up with anything.
Did they
And I
all
think
have
that
the word "the" in front of it?
It's funny. Yeah, I'm a very the guy. Fucking a. But I don't know. But technically, I write the vagues. But and sometimes in the posters we'll put the vagues. But it was in our minds it was vagues. I do believe the Niki Taylors started in '92, like late '92. So it was Jimmy had quit. I don't know why Jimmy quit. I can't even remember why. But he was great. Jimmy was a great guitar player, and we lamented his leaving. That's for sure. Yeah. So that was the end of the Vagues,
Yeah.
and we do have we there is one album of the Vagues that you buy, and it that you can buy or listen to. You can stream it free. I don't think it's on streaming platforms, but it is on Bandcamp where you can stream it for free. And I've mastered it and made it sound as best I can. And it's just a Ghetto Blaster recording of rehearsal. And then if you buy it, there's I think 4 bonus tracks of some of the same songs, but I'm playing guitar. It was after Jimmy left, and I was playing guitar on them. I don't know. I don't think you can see those if you look at the page, but they're there if you buy it. So, and that's all the vague stuff that we have recorded. That's close to an album we have, and I named it "Live in Amsterdam," and I didn't even put it out until like it says 1992, but I didn't release it until years later. I think it was even
What was the connection with the title?
none. I liked it because it made it look like we were live in Amsterdam, but it really
Okay.
was a little subterfuge there.
Right.
So, wow, you played in Amsterdam? Read the cover. So, yeah. So that was the end. That was the end of the Vegas.
You
It
kept
was a good. Yeah.
for the next project, you kept but decided to go with a different name, I would say, in this instance, the Niki Taylor. So I think it's a great
Yeah.
place to just start there. How did the band get its name?
I don't know. I know we all wanted to. I know we it was kind of a group effort, and I don't know who came up with the actual name, and it might have been a amalgam of all of us because I think there was a band called who is the girl with black hair and she was gothic and she was associated with Johnny Depp and she was on like the Beetlejuice movies. I don't know fucking movies.
The Winona Riders.
Yes, there was a band called the Winona Riders.
They were a punk band.
Okay, so I think that probably was an influence of it. And Pat's sister went to school with Niki Taylor's sister. They went to the same high school that we did, just later, of course. And so um, that's, I think, probably how that whole thing got started. And then it was kind of an issue when after her sister had passed away. I remember there kind of being like, should we do this? Should we not do this? But I think it was established at that point, so there's not you can't accommodate other people. Depending. Obviously it's depending on the situation, but you can't accommodate your art to other people. That's not what art is about at all. Actually, it's quite the opposite. So in any case, yeah. So so the Niki Taylors, and then we started, and we played a lot of the stuff from the Vagues still. A lot of the song like Hanging. There's a song called Hanging, which is on the Crawling with Cops album. I think I'm going to redo another version of it too. The Crawling with Cops album is actually, if it's I recorded it in 2016, and it's got a bunch of classics. I even put a couple Lick City songs on there. Lick Susie Susie is on there, and a girl who just one of the best singer I've ever worked with. The top two best singers I've ever worked with, Claire. She sang lead on that, and she sang lead on Picture Perfect, which is a Lick City song as well. Check those out. They're fun, and it was when the first time I had a professional studio in my house. Yeah, we played around all the places. Plus Five, I think I have it on my list here. Plus Five, Squeeze, of course. That was like our place. The Reunion Room, Rosebuds. Those are some good shows. And
You played the Edge a bunch of times too.
Play the Edge. We actually played with not Johnny Depp. Who's the other Johnny Depp? Keanu Reeves. But we opened up for his Dog Star
Dog
there. In
Star.
fact, um, We opened up for the Collapsing Lungs. We opened up for them at +5, and I don't know who the fuck set us up with this show, but it couldn't have been more idiotic. Okay, we were poppy kind of stuff. Collapsing Lungs is that fucking industrial metal crap that was popular back then. And so we opened up for, it was like us, Jack Off Jill, which already is you don't, that's not a, it's not a good lineup. And then uh uh the Collapsing Lungs. And so they fucking hated us, as you can imagine. It was our worst Niki Taylor's gig. Zero applause, except for when I told them it was our last song. At which point I said, just for that, we're playing this fucking song again. And I made them, I made the band play the last song we just played twice, just to piss off the audience, in fact. But it was all fucking like skinheads. And I remember one fucking asshole skinhead telling me, we're gonna kick your ass. There's gonna be a race war after the show. And I'm looking out at the audience, okay? And it's all white people. And I'm like, okay, one of the basic criteria for a race war is having two races. Okay. It was all white people. Like, who are you gonna fight, you fucking idiot? And so we got the fuck out of there. But yeah, we played all over Squeeze. We actually played a Christmas show. So the Niki Taylors, we played the Christmas show, and like it was a bunch of local bands. You played two songs and gotten fucked off, you know. And so we played Deep Depression and Dead by Christmas from Hanoi Rocks, and that was a great show. You know, all the Squeeze. You know, not only were they great because all of our friends were, and I think that's a problem with a lot of like our shows. It's like you have your friends there, that core base. And then, you know, it's like you don't really get to appreciate, you don't really grow necessarily because it's all the same people there. They all know you, you're friends. You don't get more and more and more people liking you. And, you know, some do, I guess, you know, like Marilyn Manson, they exploded, but they're a completely different thing. But, you know, but anyway, but so we always had our core there and they were always supportive, so supportive of us. And a lot of that is to do with Pat. Like Pat was the social butterfly of the bunch. He knew everybody. Chris wasn't even a factor. Like it was Pat was that band. We were popular because the name, because she sent us a letter, a letter from her lawyer saying cease and desist, which I should have put on that website. Fuck, I'll put it. I'll find it and I'll put it up in the next day or two. So check out chrisgsimmons.com/interview. I will put that letter up there. The Niki Taylor letter. This was our bounce to popularity. Suddenly we were popular, boom, all because of that. We played the show called, this place called, it was right next to Bob's News on Andrews Avenue right downtown Lauderdale. Primal Scream is what it was called. And I think the flyer's in there. I think it says Major Party on there, on the flyer. And we played with the Stimulators, which was Nuti Kataya's band. A guy from Finland. Boy, was he a riot. And us. And it was just raw fucking rock and roll. And it was one stage in the middle of everybody. So you were surrounded. And all we played was the heavy fucking songs. But it was, man, that was rock and roll. And we're surrounded. Everybody's fucking cheering, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, so we played that show. It was fucking awesome. And whatever. I think the next day or the day after, that venue got a letter from Niki Taylor's lawyer. Now, backtrack 2 weeks, maybe a week or two beforehand. We're at Squeeze, and we run into Niki. A week before that, I'm working television for like a basketball game. I did like Miami Heat games, but I did a football game. I think it was a college game, and they had Niki Taylor come out on the field and flip the coin. I don't know. So, and I was like, oh shit, Niki Taylor. I wanted to talk to her to tell her, hey, we have a band named after you. But anyway, like a week after that, we saw her at Squeeze. We ran into her at Squeeze. So we started rapping with her or whatever. And she was totally cool. And we were like, yeah, our band, come see us. We're going to play at the Power Studio, or I'm not Power Studio, the Primal Scream. And next week, it's right here, you know, come see us. She was like, yeah, oh my gosh, she was totally into it. Totally cool. And I was like, yeah, I just saw you flip a coin at she's like, oh my God, that was so stupid. I can't believe they made me do that crap. She was fucking like embarrassed. But so Anyway, we played the show. Fucking next day or the day after, letter from her lawyer arrives. Basically, cease and desist using her name, or we're gonna sue you. Basically, is the long and short of it. So immediately we got that. It goes to the back of every flyer that we. So all of Niki Taylor's flyers have that fucking letter on the back. Thank you, Feinstein and Feinstein Associates, because that you made us popular. We were on the radio, like they were talking about us on the radio stage, like the FM radio stations, like the real ones. Like they were like, all of them were on our side. Like, leave these fucking guys alone. They're just a local band, blah. Because we made a big stink of it, of course, because you have to. That's what I learned from Talent Line International after we got back from New York. But so
And
yeah,
for those that may not be aware of this context, Niki Taylor was a really well-known supermodel in the late
still
80s
is, yeah.
and 90s and still known, but for those that may not be as familiar or may not have grown up in that era, you may not be as familiar with Niki Taylor.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, she was a supermodel. She was the supermodel back then. And so, we thought everything would be cool, especially after talking to her. We thought it would be, we would, and in my mind, I'm thinking marketing. Like, if we could get this girl to come to our shows, boy, we'll get more and more people. Get her fans to our shows. That was kind of how I was thinking about it. So, yeah, but it didn't turn out that way. So, but yeah, thank you, Niki, for that. So yeah, and actually, I have my patented Niki Taylor's guitar behind me right there. I put it out just for you. And it's got if you see, I don't know if you can see up close, it's a smiley face. Um, Everything is the same. There's a smiley face right here. I actually would wear it over my mouth, but then I ended up putting it on my guitar. And this is where it has resided for the past 30 fucking years. A pair of my jeans on the back. So yeah, it's got major. I can't believe a girl hasn't stolen that. I'm amazed. But yeah, that is a relic, a rock and roll relic of
It
mine. I
certainly
love that.
is.
What are you gonna do? Oh,
You had shared with me a flyer I had not seen before, and I believe this show was in 93 at the Plus 5, and I want to say it was right around the time Marilyn Manson dropped the Spooky Kids from the name, and it was a show with Jack Off Jill, who you played with in other
we played with
shows,
them too. Yeah.
and the Niki Taylors. So, what do you remember from that show and just other shows that you may have also played with Manson back in that era?
I think we might have played with them twice. I honestly don't remember because Pat was friends. I was friends with Brad because we'd known each other because we're both from Hollywood. So I'd known Brad since I was like 15. He was of the Hollywood scene. Him and like Brian Waters, who's actually kind of a celebrity out in LA now. He played with the Countdowns and the Flash Express and whatnot. We still talk on the phone. And so Brad, the original bass player, he was like I was closer to him. We had kind of a rift because towards the end because I was playing with his girlfriend, if you know what I mean, and we were doing heroin, and he started he started getting mad at me. We made up, and after he moved to New York, unfortunately, he still got fucked up on heroin in New York. So I ordered like $1,000 worth of art from him because I have like the guy who does my album covers now, Borja Sanchez. Like I license those for my covers, and then I buy the actual original art from him. So I have original art from like him and other artists. I like to collect like art, unknown guys, and Vorha is fucking amazing. Check him out. He's so good and just creative. And you would think that he's AI. Like you look at the things like, oh, this is AI. No, he draws everything. But but and of course I never got. He just fucking bought drugs with the money I sent him and never sent me art piece one. So so the estate of Brad Stewart, you owe me $1,000 worth of art, and I want it. God damn it. So that's my message to you. I'm going to send you a letter from Feinstein and Feinstein from Niki Taylor's. But so, but yeah, I think so. But Pat was Pat's friends with everybody because everybody loves Pat. But but I was closer to Brad and to a lesser degree to Scott. the original guitarist. Both of them has passed now, as you may probably know. And then Steve and me had a weird relationship because we never really talked outside of like clubs. But when we did, I remember once we were at Boom. It was the night I met Michelle St. Jean, in fact. We were at this place called Boom. It was shit, Kim's Alley. It was like right where Kim's Alley Bar was, I think, in that same little area where I think it's where Sukhothai was. If you know, it's like Sunrise Boulevard and US 1, I think, right in that little conglomeration. Anyway, it was like a nightclub. I think that's where it was. I could be wrong, but and me and him, we all went out. Michelle St. Jean, who I just met that night and fell madly in love with, and him and I think Michelle St. Jean's girlfriend. We all went into my car and smoked a joint. And I remember all he did the whole time was bitch. Like, and then every time I'd ever see him, he would always just be complaining about something. And I always think, whenever I think of Steve, he was the keyboardist. I don't know their names, but I know their real names. I don't know their fun names, but whatever he was, Gidget Gain or whatever. I think that was Brad. But always bitching. Like every time I ran into him, I love that guy. I was like, God, I love this guy. He's bitching constantly because I would join him. I'm like, hey, fucking. But yeah, so we played with him a couple times. I don't think we went over well with those. I mean, the thing is, I think that saved us is that we were friends with everybody in the audience because it was, the same audience. And I've actually signed autographs, people thinking I was Marilyn Manson. I remember one instance in not Quick Trip, that's Madison. It's in Cooper City. There was a Winn-Dixie, and right next to it, Rite Aid. And me and my buddy Carl, we had this scam. We were poor. And so we had this scam where we would go to Rite Aid, buy a 6-pack of beer, go to the car, take the bottles out, but have the receipt and the box of beer in the Rite Aid bag. We'd walk into Winn-Dixie, and there were no cameras then, and we'd fill up the beer with full beer. We'd fill up the empty box with beer, and then walk out and just buy a paper. And then we would have a receipt to prove that we bought the beer. We would have the lady at the counter who could vouch for us that it was foolproof. And so we got free beer from that all the time. And as a matter of fact, Brian Eiler, the guitarist for the Niki Taylors, ruined it because he tried it one day and then he chickened out and ended up taking the beer out of the bag at the counter and paying for it. And after that, they knew what we were doing. Thanks, Brian. So, but yeah, and I ran into somebody there and they're like, Marilyn Manson, because I had straight dark, mine was black cherry, my head, but it was same hair. We looked the same, straight. And I was like, Marilyn Manson. And Carl's like, yeah, that's him. And I was like, oh yeah, that's me. He's like, can I have an autograph? So I signed Marilyn Manson. I should have signed Chris G. Simmons. That would have been hilarious. But yeah, it was Rite Aid where I impersonated Marilyn Manson. But yeah, but yeah, Pat was more friends with not only Manson but everybody more than me, period. So he got us these shows. So we might have played once, we might have played twice. I don't think any more than twice with Manson.
Who was the one creating a lot of the flyers for their Niki Taylors?
Me, I did all of that crap. I think Billy designed the very last one for the show after he quit. He designed that flyer. That I do remember, but I did all of it because I was, it was me. It was my vision and all that shit. They probably didn't want to deal with it anyway. So, yeah. And I miss those days where you cut out shit from magazines and you pasted it all together and did the copies, and it was like a whole experience. It was like it was like a family outing, for a flyer outing, a flyerly outing. But yeah, those concerts, the crowds were good, but again, it's a mismatch. Us playing with Meryl, it's two complete separate things,
What do you remember about some of the local bands that you were sharing a stage with who were more in line with the Niki Taylors?
And you know what? And this was kind of like our problem. We weren't like anybody, and I think we fell into this gray area that. And me and Pat talk about this to this day, in fact, that our music tended to go over everybody's heads because we had a lot of changes. We had a lot of off-time stuff. And that's not what makes you popular. You don't get popular. You get popular from chord progressions people are familiar with, repetition of choruses, which we did not do. And Carrie Peak would make fun of me for this, in fact. So I don't think anybody ever really like got us, you know, and that's my fault because that's A, it's my art. B, I didn't want to be that, you know. I that's not who I am. It's not who I wanted to be. It's not who any of us wanted to be. You know, we were into playing music that was fun to play, that we liked. And you know, and I think it goes back to me as an artist, you know, which I take very seriously, you know, because that's all that I am. I'm a failure at everything else. You know, like I am nothing else but artist. And I create, and that's just what I do. And whether or not somebody listens to it or looks at it or sees it is immaterial to me, you know. And so we didn't care, you know, and that hurt us.
Yeah.
And you know, Pat knows it, I know it, and I would imagine Billy knows it, you know. And unfortunately, you know, the way the band ended, it was it didn't end good, because it was my poor decision making. I had some inappropriate relationships, but yeah, so that was the end of the Niki Taylors. And you know what? After, you know, because I had a lot of side things going on in my personal life that I hid from everybody, and those things kind of exploded after the Niki Taylors. That was kind of like that was the last band I played with. I kind of floated, got heavier into drugs and alcohol, and I just like would just get into myself, and I would just listen to my music. And once me and Alicia and this guy Mark Stewart, we were going to see the Ramones, um, at the I think they were at the Cameo, and we drove down there. And when we got there, I pulled a Chris Simmons, which is I'm famous for this. I was like, I don't want to go in. I was just so they went in and watched the Ramones, and I just got stoned and sat in the car and listened to myself, like listened to my demos, and I was like the happiest guy. And I'm sitting there in Mark Stewart's car. He was a great guy. I miss him. I hope he's doing okay. And this lady, this Hispanic, old Hispanic lady in a house dress and flip flops, comes like sliding up to the car. And I'm like in the car, stoned as fuck, listening to myself, you know, dude. And she comes up to and she like starts hanging on the what's that thing called? The thing where you put coins in, the parking meter. And she starts like rubbing her, and the wind is on her, so like her house dress is like form fitting to her body, and she starts pulls her dress up and starts like diddling herself and feeling herself like her, and and to looking at me like I don't know if maybe she was a prostitute, or maybe that's I didn't understand any of that at the time. Like I was innocent, I was, believe it or not, weirdly innocent, but for a long time. But and then she stops all of a sudden, and she looks at me and she goes, I can't hear her, but I can read her lips. And she goes, you scare me. And she like slides off. It's like,
It's kind of
welcome to
creepy.
Miami.
Wow.
Welcome to South Beach. But yeah, you know, just, and so I spent the next decade or whatever recorded, did a lot of like electronic stuff because it was everything I stole everything from the net, like drums. I would take drum loops and re-record them and make them distorted. And so I invented Paris Plague, which has I think 6 albums now, and it's all just like crazy electronic shit. Glorious Dead, all this shit you can stream. Paris Plague's a lot of good stuff. I wrote a lot of that in Los Angeles when I moved out there for a while.
You moved out of
But
Florida quite a number of years ago, right? Is when you
yeah, moved out of Florida in 2002, 2001, 2002. Moved to Chicago. I was actually heading back to LA with my 2 dogs. I got kicked out because I had an apartment in Fort Lauderdale, and this girl, she bought a dog and then kicked her old dog out because they didn't get along, which I thought was kind of fucked up. So I took the dog in. So I had Kopek, who's a big ass pit bull, and I took this dog in, and they kicked me out of that apartment because they didn't allow that. And so I was kind of homeless for a while. Then my friend, another one of my friends, let me live in her house, and so ended up leaving with the 2 dogs. So I like lived in my a car with 2 dogs, and I don't recommend this at all. And I was gonna go just move to LA and try one last time, you know, to make it. But I was like, I want to see Chicago, and so I got there, and I was like, wow, this is so much better. And I ended up just getting an apartment there, and I lived there for 10 years and tried to get some electronic places. I hooked up with some people, but I was just really bad. My drugs and alcohol. I was at the point where I would just drink until I fell down. Like physically could not drink anymore. You know, it was that, and which is pathetic in my opinion. So I did get a good. I wrote and other tirades, which was a lot of shit pulled from my journals, and then into story mode. So pretty much everything in and other tirades. It's a great book. 2006 was published, and it was basically a fuck you to political correctness. Was the whole point of it, and so it was totally offensive. Which that's what art is, and but it was I went so overboard with one particular aspect of it that it kind of overshadowed the writing because it's a really good book and it's really interesting and basically all the stories are true and I kind of embellished them to make them fictionalized, and change names, of course, and stuff. So it's in its third edition now, I think, and I took all that crap out that I think was overshadowing, and I just left. So like the book that's available now that because you can't get the old ones anymore, thank God. It sold a lot though. It sold the first sold a lot, and I wish it didn't. But it's a really good book, and it's fun and it's real and it's cool. So I wrote that in 2006, I believe, and published it and whatnot. And just did a lot of electronic, and then I ended up moving to Madison and moved to Madison and started the Terrible Ifs. I actually did Crawling with Cops. That's a conglomeration. I think there's like two new songs, and then the rest is like old stuff. So it's kind of Florida oriented because it's all shit from like '87. There's like two glam songs, as I told you, which are fun, when it's fun. It's kind of overproduced, but it was my first foray into having a real studio. Um, Recorded that, and then started recording. Started the terrible. Actually, the Poet Burns. No, Yes Dream, which is the first Terrible Ifs album, was actually the second Crawling with Cops album, and that's all classics. I think that's all old stuff, redone. But I hate the name Crawling with Cops now, so I rebranded it. Um, and yeah, so the Terrible Ifs stuff, and then that's what I do. Like the Terrible Ifs is my main project now, and it's basically me whining about Julie at this point, but she is my muse, and I'm just milking it for all it's worth, because she gets me. I get so creative over this girl, it's completely insane. So, and I'm not gonna stop. Obviously, I'm not gonna to inhibit. I can't inhibit myself. I create, and it happens, and it's there, and I'm just doing something weird. I'm planting my flowers or my vegetables because I have a vegetable garden now, and boink, here comes a song, and it's written. I got to rush inside and record it on the recorder and get it down, and that's my life now, just recording and being sober. But I was out of control, and it's funny because when I quit, I smoked weed like every hour on the hour, did coke. I pissed away all of my money on drugs. And it's weird because when you are an addict, I spent all my money on drugs. And then when it came time to pay rent, I didn't have my rent and I couldn't figure out why. It's like, I have a fucking job. Like I work at a snooty fucking restaurant. I make a lot of money. What is going on? Like, why I can't pay it never occurred to me that I'm spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars every month on beer, on weed, on cocaine, etc. It sounds stupid and you don't believe it when I tell it to you, but it's the fucking truth. I didn't understand it, and it's not until a friend of mine, I started a business doing advertising, and I had to do my books when I realized, holy Christ, I'm spending $3,000 a month on drugs, and that was the beginning of the end of the drugs. And it's funny because I was a weed smoker. It was part of my personality. It's who I was. And I just assumed I would always be like that. And I had a friend, I was middlemaning in a drug deal, and he had pounds and pounds of it. And he was going to sell to my weed dealer, ironically. But he was like, hey, I'll give you however much. I'll give you, several ounces of weed if you can make this deal go through. So I did. I hooked him up, and that morning that he was supposed to show up, I think it was 2010. It was right before I had cancer surgery. I had my kidney removed from cancer,
Mm.
and I think it was just before or just after that. And I woke up, literally, I stood sat up in bed, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I never smoked weed again. Like the day I was supposed to get like many, many ounces of weed for free, I quit. And I was like, I don't want it. I'll do the deal. And then that is it. And I never smoked again. And I was still an alcoholic, a raging one, which I credit my girlfriend and current best friend, Nick. We met in 2013. I had a house in Watertown, Wisconsin, and I was out of control drinking, and I was such a drunk. I would go to the bar. Watertown is very small. I went to a bar that was two turns from my house, and I was so drunk I got lost driving. I I was so wasted I got lost, and thank God a cop didn't, because it's a small place. A cop could have easily. I had to pull over and map myself, use Google Maps to map myself home from a
Wow.
mile away. It was that bad. So every now and then somebody is put in. She was put in my life
Yeah.
for a reason. Like that was the path. Remember the path we
Sure.
were talking about 6 hours ago?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
she was there. I'm grateful to her because I would probably still be there. Although I shouldn't underestimate myself, but yeah. So and it's the two greatest days of my life were A, quitting drugs and weed, especially, and two, quitting drinking is like the two best days of my entire life, bar none. And I'm so grateful I'm not a religious person, but it wasn't me who quit weed. It's just I don't know who did it, but thank you. And then the drunkenness for Nick, I owe her my life probably.
I want to thank you, Chris, for taking the time to really unpack the journey, going back to the earliest beginnings to where things are present and really focusing in on those Florida years. So, really great stuff. And as we get ready to close things out, I would love to give you the last word. Any final thoughts you'd like to share to the folks out there, both checking this episode out on YouTube, but also listening to it? The floor is yours to take us home.
Well, first of all, thank you, Jeff, for having me. I was always, ever since I've been watching this show, I've been jealous of everybody on it. And when Carrie's show, I was like, okay, I need to be on this, and Carrie actually contacted me. So thank you, Carrie Peak, as well. And everybody watch his episode because it's great. He he actually bugged me about it, and I was like, and like I'm kind of stupid, like it's pride oriented or ego oriented, but like he's like, you should get in touch with this guy, because we talked about his show, and he's like, yeah, get in touch with him, dude, because I think other people have told him about you, and you have come up in a couple conversations and blah blah blah. So I was, and I wanted to contact you, but I was just like, I feel like, hey, will you have me on your show? Like I felt like a dick. So I didn't. And then, so one day he just was like, you know, uh, did you contact Jeff yet? And I was like, no, I told him, I was like, I just feel embarrassed. And then what happened. He's like, he texted a three-way text. He's like, Jeff, Jeff, introduce yourselves. Bye. And the rest, as they say, is history. So yes, I'm grateful to you and to Carrie for having me on. Because I think I have a good story, and there's a lot of stories that I've of course missed, and people that I missed that I wish I could have included. And I would like to say to people watching this, if you know me and have known me, that I've hurt a lot of people in my day because I was a very selfish little cunt, and I didn't think about other people's feelings. So like to my two bandmates, and I want to name them, but I'm everybody who's listening knows, but I don't want to be disrespectful because the whole thing is disrespectful. But to both of you, I am deeply, deeply sorry for hurting you, and to anybody else, to the 100 girls that I've hurt, because I have, and to the people, because my whole life has been art, music, and hurting people. That's pretty much it up until my recent life. So I do, and I do feel regret for it. And I'm not like a pompous ass who's like, fuck those assholes. It's how it is. It's not. It's the stuff that I think about and stuff that I try to be a better person of. And I'm successful at sometimes, and I'm not other times. So that is something. And then thank you to everybody too who supported me. Thank you to my parents, who are, again, my whole family. I'm so lucky, and there would be world peace if everybody had a family like I did. There would be world peace, and I'm grateful to all of you, to Bonnie, to Graham, to my Aunt Sandy and my grandmother, and all these people who supported me and love me to this day. I'm grateful, and I'm mindful, and I try to be more mindful every day. As we get older, I guess you get that way. And then but at the same time, you know, things had to happen the way they did to form the art that I make. And a great example is the Terrible Ifs, the Julie album. It is my pinnacle of art, and the whole story is a tragedy, and it's something that I ache about every single minute. And I say her name I probably say her name to myself and out loud 24 times a day, at least. And it's something that I'm struggling with, privately. But and I like, God, I wish that this, or I wish that we were married now, or I wish that. But the thing is, it can't be like that, because if it was like how, if that was how I wished, the Julie album wouldn't exist. And because we met in Chicago, like I've known the girl for 20 years. And so everything had to happen exactly the way it did in order for that album to exist. And my art is more important than any fucking thing else in my life. So that being said, I regret all those things, but they had to happen to make things artistically the way they are, which is all that I am, and all that I care about necessarily, in terms of that. And I guess we can leave it at that.